a long, long time ago, before there were people, animals, or even the sun and moon. There was only God. He is the one who made everything. In the beginning, God made the heavens and the earth. At first it was dark and empty. Then God said, "Let there be light." And suddenly, there was light. God called the light day and the darkness night. That was the first day. On the second day, God made the sky. He separated the waters. Some went above and some stayed below. And now there was a beautiful sky above the earth. On the third day, God made dry land appear. He called it earth. The big waters were called seas. Then God said, "Let plants grow." Suddenly, grass, flowers, and fruit trees popped up everywhere. God looked at it and saw it was good. On the fourth day, God made the sun to shine during the day and the moon to glow at night. He also made the stars, lots and lots of them. They would help people know days, years, and seasons. On the fifth day, God filled the seas with fish and sea animals. Big ones, small ones, all kinds. Then he made the birds to fly high in the sky. God blessed them and told them to have babies and fill the waters and skies. On the sixth day, God made all the animals that live on land. Big animals like elephants and lions, small ones like mice, and even tiny crawling insects. God saw they were good. Then God did something very special. He made people. God made a man and a woman, Adam and Eve. They were made in God's image, which means they could think, feel, and love like Him. God told them to take care of the earth, the animals, and the plants. God gave people plants and fruits to eat. He gave animals green plants for food too. When God looked at everything He had made, He said, "It is very good." By the seventh day, God had finished His work. He rested, not because He was tired, but to show His work was complete. He made this day special, a holy day. And that is how God created the heavens and the earth, step by step in 6 days. Everything we see today, the sky, the land, the seas, the animals, and even us, came from God. After God made the earth, the seas, the sun, moon, stars, animals, and plants, He was ready to do something very special. God was about to make the first human. God made the man from the dust of the ground. He breathed into the man's nose and the man came alive. His name was Adam. God planted a special garden called Eden. It was full of delicious fruit, clear rivers, and every tree that was nice to look at. God put Adam in the garden so he could take care of it. God told Adam, "You may eat from every tree in the garden except one, the tree of the knowledge of good and bad. If you eat from it, you will die." God gave Adam this rule to help him remember that God is the one who decides what is right and wrong, not people. God brought all the animals to Adam: lions, elephants, birds, and even tiny insects. Adam gave each of them a name. But as Adam watched, he saw that every animal had a partner, and he was alone. So God caused Adam to fall into a deep sleep. While he slept, God took one of Adam's ribs and closed up the flesh. God used the rib to make a woman. Her name was Eve. When Adam saw her, he was so happy. Finally, he had a partner, someone like him. God made marriage as a gift. A man would leave his family, stick to his wife, and the two would become one. Adam and Eve were the very first family on earth. God blessed Adam and Eve. He told them, "Have children, fill the earth, and take care of it. Rule over the animals and look after everything I made." Everything was perfect. God gave Adam and Eve life, love, food, and a beautiful home. All they had to do was obey Him. What a wonderful beginning. In the beginning, God gave Adam and Eve the most beautiful home ever, the Garden of Eden. It was filled with trees, animals, fresh water, and all the food they could want. Adam and Eve could live forever in this paradise if they obeyed God. God gave them just one rule. He said, "You may eat from every tree in the garden except one. If you eat from that tree, you will die." A beautiful but sly serpent slides up to Eve near the tree. It speaks with a crafty tone. Did God really say you must not eat from every tree? Eve replied, We may eat from the fruits of the trees in the garden, but God has said we should not eat from this one. It's special to him, and if we do, we would die. The serpent replied, Eve, you will not die. Even God knows that if you eat the fruits of this tree, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and bad. But that was a lie. God had told them the truth. But Satan, through a serpent, wanted them to stop trusting God. Eve believed Satan's lie. She thought the fruit looked delicious. She wanted the wisdom Satan promised, and so she ate. She said to Adam, Adam, try it. It tastes good. Adam hesitates, then eats too. Adam and Eve suddenly look worried and ashamed. They covered themselves and hid when they heard God's voice. Disobedience had ruined their perfect friendship with God. God confronted them as he asked Adam, Why did you eat from the tree I told you not to eat from? Adam replied, Eve gave me the fruit, so I ate. Eve immediately responded, The serpent tricked me, and I ate, but excuses didn't fix what they had done. They had disobeyed God's rule, and God laid out the consequences for their actions. Because of their choice, Adam and Eve lost their beautiful home. They began to grow old and eventually died. Worse, they passed sin and death on to all their children, including hardship and pain. And that includes us today. But God still loved humans. He promised that one day, someone special, Jesus, would come to undo the harm and bring people back to paradise forever. What have we learned? When we listen to God and obey His rules, we show that we trust Him. His way always keeps us safe and happy.
What lessons did you learn? Kindly share them in the comments. And please, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, share, and turn on the notifications so you get to see new episodes as they get released.
Adam and Eve were no longer living in the beautiful Garden of Eden. Because they disobeyed God, life became much harder for them. Every day, Adam had to work very hard, sweating as he dug the ground and planted seeds. The land didn't always give food easily. Weeds grew everywhere, and it was tiring to get enough to eat. Eve also felt the pain of sin. When she gave birth to her children, it was very painful. But even through the pain, she became the mother of many sons and daughters. Her first son was named Cain, and later she gave birth to his brother Abel. Cain grew up to be a farmer working in the fields. Abel became a shepherd, taking care of sheep. Both brothers knew they should give offerings to God, showing their love and respect for Him. Cain brought some fruits and crops from the land as his offering. Abel brought the very best sheep from his flock. God looked with favor on Abel and his gift because Abel gave from his heart and chose the best. But God was not pleased with Cain's offering. Cain became very angry. His face looked dark and unhappy. God spoke kindly to him. Why are you so angry, and why is your face gloomy? If you do what is good, will you not be lifted up? And if you do not do what is good, sin is crouching at the door. It desires to control you, but you must rule over it. God was warning Cain. Sin was like a wild animal ready to attack. Cain needed to fight those bad feelings, but Cain did not listen. One day, Cain said to Abel, "Let's go out to the field." When they were alone, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. Cain became the first murderer. God spoke to Cain and asked, "Where is your brother Abel?" Cain answered, "I do not know. Am I my brother's guardian?" But God knew exactly what Cain had done. He said, "What have you done?" "Listen, your brother's blood is crying out to me from the ground." Because of his crime, Cain was punished. God said that Cain would have to wander the earth, always restless and without peace. Adam and Eve must have been heartbroken. They had already lost their perfect home in Eden because of sin. Now they saw one son murdered and the other punished. The sadness of sin was heavy on the family. Today, we still feel the results of Adam and Eve's sin. People suffer pain, sickness, hard work, and even death. But God has promised that one day all these problems will end. He will bring back peace and happiness to the earth, just as it was in the beginning. After Adam and Eve left the garden, grew old and died, more and more people filled the earth. But instead of living in peace, people became very wicked. The world was full of violence and sadness. Some angels who once lived with God in heaven chose to do something wrong. They left their place in heaven and came down to earth. Why? Because they wanted to take human women as their wives. These angels took for themselves the daughters of men. The men of earth were helpless. They couldn't stop them. Families cried as their loved ones were taken away. From this came the Nephilim, giants, strong and terrifying. They weren't kind or gentle. They hurt people, bullied them, and filled the earth with even more violence. Everywhere people looked, there was fear. The Nephilim scared everyone. The world became darker, more violent, and filled with sadness. God saw it all and his heart was hurt. But in all this evil, one man was different, Noah. He loved God. He walked with God when no one else did. He didn't follow the angels who left heaven, and he didn't give in to the giants. Noah chose to walk with God. God told Noah, I will end all this violence, build an ark, a big boat, for you and your family. I will save you. Noah and his family worked for years. People laughed at them and said, why are you building a boat when there's no flood? But Noah trusted God. He kept working. The angels who left heaven, the giants called Nephilim, and all the wicked people would soon face God's judgment. But Noah and his family had hope. Would you like to see how animals from all over the earth came into the ark, and how the rain began to fall? Follow, subscribe, and turn on the notifications so you get to see new episodes as they get released. Last time, we learned how God told Noah to build a giant ark because he was going to bring a great flood to wash away the wickedness on earth. Let's see what happened next. For many years, Noah warned the people, God is going to bring a flood. Turn away from bad things and listen to God. But the people only laughed at Noah. They thought he was crazy. They didn't believe a flood would come. Noah and his family kept working. They cut wood, hammered nails, and covered the ark with tar. Slowly, piece by piece, the ark was finished, just as God had commanded. Noah did everything that God commanded him. He did just so. Then something amazing happened. Animals began to arrive, 2 of every kind, and 7 of the clean animals. Big ones, small ones, crawling ones, and flying ones. They all walked right into the ark, just as God had planned. 2 by 2, they went into the ark to Noah, male and female, just as God had commanded. Finally, it was time. Noah, his wife, his sons, and their wives entered the ark. God then shut the door behind them. The people outside still laughed, but they didn't realize what was about to happen. After that, God shut the door behind him. Then the sky grew dark. The first drops of rain began to fall. Drip, drop, drip, drop. Soon the rain poured down harder and harder. The rivers rose, the streams overflowed, and the earth began to flood. For 40 days and 40 nights, the rain never stopped. The water covered the mountains. Every wicked person and every creature outside the ark was swept away. But inside the ark, Noah, his family, and the animals were safe. Only Noah and those with him in the ark survived. The flood destroyed all the wicked people who refused to listen. But God saved Noah and his family because they obeyed him. Would you like to see what happens when the floodwaters begin to go down? And what Noah does when he steps out of the ark onto dry land again? The great floodwaters covered the whole earth. Only 8 people were safe inside the ark. Noah, his wife, his 3 sons Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and their wives. Along with them were pairs of every kind of animal. Lions and sheep, elephants and birds, little insects, and all kinds of creatures that God had saved. Inside the ark, the sound must have been amazing. You could hear the trumpeting of elephants, the chirping of birds, the mooing of cows, and maybe even the roar of lions. For 40 days and 40 nights, rain poured down. The windows of heaven opened, and the waters rose higher and higher. But inside the ark, God kept Noah, his family, and all the animals safe. Can you imagine what life was like inside that big wooden ark? The family likely took turns feeding the animals every day. They might have cleaned the stalls and gave fresh water to each animal. At night, they probably sang songs together, prayed to God, and encouraged one another to stay strong. Maybe they even told stories to pass the time while listening to the rain pounding outside. It wasn't always easy, but Noah and his family trusted God. Finally, the rain stopped. The ark floated quietly on the waters. Days and weeks went by. Then one day, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. Noah waited patiently. He sent out a raven. It kept flying back and forth. Then he sent out a dove. The first time, the dove found no place to land and returned. But later, the dove came back with a fresh olive leaf in its beak. This was a sign that the waters were going down. Later still, the dove didn't return at all. That meant the earth was ready again for life. Finally, the day came when God told Noah and his family, "Go out of the ark." Can you imagine how excited they were? The animals ran out into the sunlight. Deer leaping, birds flying high, and elephants trumpeting with joy. Noah's family stepped onto the dry ground, breathing fresh air, seeing the world made new and clean. The first thing Noah did was build an altar to God to thank him for saving them. And then God made a beautiful promise. He set a rainbow in the sky. God said the rainbow would be a sign of his promise that he would never again destroy the whole earth with a flood. From that day on, whenever Noah's family saw a rainbow, they would remember God's kindness and love. And even today, when you see a rainbow, you can remember that promise too. The great flood of God, Noah and his family came out of the ark. God blessed them and told them,
"Be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth."
You can imagine Noah's children and grandchildren spreading out, building little homes, planting crops, and raising animals. Everywhere they went, the ground was fresh, green, and ready for a new start. As the families grew, many of them didn't want to spread all over the earth. Instead, they all traveled together and found a flat land called Shinar. The land of Shinar may have had wide open fields with a river running through it and rich soil for farming. People thought, "This place is perfect. Let's stay here." Then the people said, "Come, let us build a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves, so that we will not be scattered over all the earth." Men molded bricks, stacking them high. Women carried water, and children watched in excitement. Dust filled the air as the tower grew taller and taller, shining in the sunlight. Some may have said proudly, look how great we are. We don't need to listen to God. We can stay here forever." God looked down and saw what the people were doing. He knew their hearts. They weren't building the tower to honor him. They wanted to honor themselves. So God said,
"Look, they are one people, and they all have one language. This is what they have started to do. Now, nothing they plan will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language so they will not understand one another."
Suddenly, something amazing happened. The workers couldn't understand each other anymore. One man asked for a brick, but the other handed him straw. Another shouted for water, but got a hammer instead. Everyone was confused. People started laughing, arguing, and shouting in different languages. The once busy tower site became a noisy, messy place. Because they could no longer understand each other, the work stopped. Families who spoke the same language moved away together, searching for new lands. That place became known as Babel, which means confusion. Groups of families walking off in different directions. Some towards the mountains, others near the sea, some into forests. Each family carried their belongings, animals, and tools, starting life in new places around the earth, just as God had told them to do in the beginning. Have you ever had to move to a new place? Maybe a new school, a new house, or even a new country. It can feel scary, right? Now imagine being asked to move without even knowing where you are going. That's exactly what happened to Abraham. Back then, not far from where the Tower of Babel was built, there was a big, busy city called Ur. The people there had beautiful houses, markets filled with food, and tall temples where they prayed to many false gods. But Abraham was different. Out of all the people in Ur, he worshipped only God, the true God. One day, God spoke to Abraham. He said, "Leave your home, your family, and your relatives. Go to the land that I will show you." And then God made a big promise. "You will become a large nation. I will bless you, and through you, good things will come to people all over the earth." Abraham didn't know where God was sending him. He could have said, "But where are we going? What will it be like? What if it's dangerous?" But instead, he trusted God completely. So Abraham, his wife Sarah, his father Terah, and his nephew Lot packed their things. Can you picture it? Donkeys loaded with baskets, servants carrying supplies, and Sarah carefully wrapping up their household treasures. Maybe little children, Lot's kids, running around feeling excited, wondering what their new home would look like. It was a long trip across deserts, rivers, and hills. The sun was hot, and sometimes they had to sleep in tents under the stars. But every step showed Abraham's trust in God. Finally, at 75 years old, Abraham reached the land God wanted to show him, the land of Canaan. There, God spoke again. "Look around you. All this land you see, I will give to your children." But there was one big problem. Abraham and Sarah had no children. They were old, far too old to normally have a baby. So Abraham may have wondered, how will God keep his promise? This is where faith comes in. Abraham didn't have all the answers, but he trusted God would find a way. He may have reflected on how God kept his promise with Noah. Maybe on some nights, as Abraham and Sarah looked up at the sky filled with shining stars, they whispered to each other, "God says our children will be as many as the stars." Can you imagine that? And Sarah might have smiled even though she was unsure how it could ever happen. Abraham's trust in God was so strong that he became known as the father of all those having faith. What have we learned? Even when we don't know what the future holds, we can trust God like Abraham did. He never breaks his promises. Would you like to see how God's promise was fulfilled? If yes, drop a yes in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, follow, or subscribe, and turn on the post notifications so you get to see new episodes as they get released. Abraham and Sarah had been married for a very long time. They had left their comfortable home in Ur and now lived in a tent, moving from place to place. Life wasn't always easy, but Sarah never complained. Why? Because she trusted God. Still, there was something Sarah wanted more than anything else: a child. She had prayed and waited many years, but as time passed, she began to think maybe she would never have a baby. So she came up with an idea.
"Abraham, maybe my servant Hagar can have a child for us. It could be like my own."
Abraham agreed, and in time, Hagar gave birth to a son named Ishmael. Years went by. Abraham was now 99 years old and Sarah was 89, very old for having children. One hot day, Abraham was sitting at the entrance of his tent. Suddenly, he saw 3 men standing nearby. He hurried to meet them and invited them to rest under a tree while he prepared a meal for them. These were no ordinary men. They were angels sent by God. One of the angels told Abraham something amazing. "Next year at this time, your wife Sarah will have a son." Sarah was inside the tent listening. When she heard this, she laughed. Maybe Sarah covered her mouth quickly, hoping no one would notice, and peeked out of the tent. She said to herself quietly,
"How can I, an old woman, really have a child? Abraham is old too."
But God heard her thoughts. The angel asked, "Why did Sarah laugh? Is anything too wonderful for God?" Sarah was so surprised that she became a little afraid and said,
"I didn't laugh."
But the angel replied, "Yes, you did laugh." And guess what? The angel's words came true. The very next year, Sarah gave birth to a baby boy. Abraham named him Isaac, which means laughter, because both Abraham and Sarah laughed with joy this time. When Isaac grew older, about 5 years old, Sarah noticed something that made her sad and worried. She saw Ishmael making fun of Isaac. She loved her son very much and wanted to protect him. Sarah went to Abraham and said,
"Please send Hagar and Ishmael away."
Abraham felt upset. He cared about Ishmael too and didn't want to send him away. But God spoke to Abraham and said, "Do not be worried. Listen to Sarah. I will take care of Ishmael. But remember, it is through Isaac that my promises will come true." So Abraham trusted God and he obeyed. Ishmael would be safe because God himself promised to care for him. What have we learned? God always keeps his promises, even if they seem impossible to us. Just like Sarah, who received power to have a child because she trusted God, we too can believe that nothing is too hard for him. Have you ever been asked to do something that felt really hard? Maybe something that made you want to say, "But why?" Well, today's story is about a man who was asked to do something very, very hard. And he trusted God completely. His name was Abraham. Abraham loved God with all his heart. He had waited for many, many years for a son. And finally, God blessed him and Sarah with Isaac, their miracle baby. Abraham loved Isaac so much. He taught him to pray, to help others, and most importantly, to always trust God. But one day, something surprising happened. God spoke to Abraham and said, "Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love so much, and go to the land of Moriah. There you must offer him as a sacrifice." Abraham's heart must have stopped for a moment. Offer Isaac, the son God had promised him? It didn't make sense. But Abraham didn't argue. He trusted that God always knows best. The very next morning, Abraham got up early, packed for the trip, and called Isaac. Together with 2 servants, they began their journey to the land of Moriah. For 3 long days, they walked under the hot sun. Abraham didn't complain, but his heart was heavy. Sometimes he looked at Isaac and smiled softly, maybe wondering how God's promise would still come true. When they finally saw the mountain in the distance, Abraham told the servants to wait. He placed the wood on Isaac's back and carried the fire and knife himself. "Father, we have the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the sacrifice?" Isaac asked. Abraham replied, "My son, God will provide the sacrifice." Isaac trusted his father, and his father trusted God. When they reached the top, Abraham built a stone altar. Then he told Isaac what God had commanded. Isaac could have run away. He was young and strong. But instead he trusted his father and obeyed because he too believed in God. Maybe Isaac closed his eyes and prayed quietly, asking God for courage. Abraham's hands trembled as he tied Isaac's hands and laid him on the altar. Then Abraham lifted the knife. Suddenly a bright light shines and a voice echoes from heaven. "Abraham! Abraham, do not harm the boy. Now I know that you truly fear God because you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me." Then Abraham looked around, and there in the bushes, caught by its horns, was a ram. God had provided a sacrifice, just like Abraham had said. With tears of relief and joy, Abraham offered the ram instead of Isaac. From that day, Abraham named the place Jehovah-Jireh, which means Jehovah will provide. God was so pleased with Abraham's faith and obedience that he repeated his promise. "I will bless you, and your descendants will be as many as the stars in the sky. Through your family, all nations of the earth will be blessed." That's because God knew Abraham truly loved him and trusted him, even when he didn't understand the reason why. Abraham's story teaches us that faith means trusting God completely, even when it's hard. That's why God called Abraham his friend, and why we can learn to trust him just as much. Are there other lessons you learned? Kindly drop them in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, follow, or subscribe, and turn on the post notifications so you get to see new episodes as they get released. A woman named Rebecca came to the well. She carried a water jar on her shoulder. The servant ran to meet her and said, "Please, may I have a little water from your jar?" Rebecca smiled kindly and said, "Of course. Drink, my lord." Abraham was now a very old man, and God had truly blessed him in every way. His son Isaac had grown into a kind, strong young man who loved God, just as his father did. But there was one thing still missing. Isaac needed a wife, and Abraham wanted to make sure she was someone who also loved God. One day, Abraham called for his most trusted servant, a wise, loyal man who had served him for many years, and instructed him to find a wife for Isaac, not from the Canaanite people around them, but from his hometown. The servant bowed respectfully and said, "But what if the woman refuses to come back with me? Should I take Isaac there?" Abraham shook his head. "No, God has promised that this land will belong to my family. The angel of the Most High will go with you and help you find the right wife for Isaac." So the servant made the promise, gathered gifts, and prepared for a long journey. The servant took 10 camels loaded with gifts and began the long trip across the hot desert to Nahor's city, Abraham's homeland. After many days, he arrived at a well just outside the city. It was evening, and the women were coming out to draw water. The servant prayed quietly, "The God of my master Abraham, please help me find the right woman. When I ask a young woman for a drink, if she also offers to give water to my camels, then I'll know she is the one you've chosen for Isaac." Just as he finished praying, a beautiful young woman named Rebekah came to the well. She carried a water jar on her shoulder. The servant ran to meet her and said, "Please, may I have a little water from your jar?" Rebekah smiled kindly and said, "Of course. Drink, my lord." Then she quickly added, "I'll also draw water for your camels until they have had enough." She hurried to the well, filling her jar again and again, watering all 10 camels. The servant watched closely, his heart filled with joy. His prayer had been answered. When the camels finished drinking, the servant gave Rebekah a gold nose ring and 2 bracelets. He asked, "Whose daughter are you? Is there room in your father's house for us to stay the night?" Rebekah replied, "I'm the daughter of Bethuel, son of Nahor." The servant bowed his head and thanked God. Rebekah ran home to tell her family about the man at the well. Her brother Laban came out to greet him. They invited the servant inside, gave food to his camels, and set food before him. But the servant said, "I will not eat until I tell you why I've come." He told them the whole story, how Abraham sent him, how he prayed, and how God answered his prayer by sending Rebekah. Laban and Bethuel said, "This is from the true God. Take Rebekah and go. Let her become the wife of your master's son." The next morning, Rebekah agreed to go with Abraham's servant. So Rebekah and her nurse rode on camels with Abraham's servant, heading back through the desert toward Canaan. One evening, as they neared home, Isaac was out in the field meditating and praying. He looked up and saw the camels coming. Rebekah also looked up and saw Isaac. She quickly covered her face with a veil, as was custom for brides. The servant told Isaac everything that had happened. Every prayer, every sign, every blessing. Isaac smiled, thankful that God had guided it all. Then Isaac took Rebekah as his wife, and he loved her deeply. She comforted him after the loss of his mother, Sarah. So, what have we learned? God showed once again that he always guides those who trust in him. Abraham's servant prayed for help, and God answered. This teaches us that God listens to sincere prayers. Are there other lessons you learned? Kindly drop them in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, follow, or subscribe, and turn on the post notifications so you get to see new episodes as they get released.
What is a birthright if I die of hunger?
So he agreed to trade it for a single bowl of stew. Jacob served the stew, Esau ate it quickly, and just like that, Esau gave away something priceless for a meal. Do you think Esau made a wise choice? Have you ever seen twins that look completely different from each other? That's how it was with Jacob and Esau, the twin sons of Isaac and Rebekah. Even before they were born, the 2 babies were already wrestling inside their mother's womb. Rebekah was puzzled and prayed to God.
Why is this happening to me?
God answered her and said,
2 nations are in your womb. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger.
Rebekah didn't yet understand exactly what that meant, but she would soon find out. When the twins were born, Esau came out first. He had reddish skin and was covered with thick hair like a little coat of fur. That's why his parents named him Esau, meaning hairy. Right behind him came his brother Jacob, holding tightly onto Esau's heel as if saying, "Wait, I'm coming too." And so his name Jacob meant one who grabs the heel. As the boys grew up, they became very different. Esau loved the outdoors, hunting wild animals, tracking deer, and bringing back food for his father Isaac. Jacob, on the other hand, preferred peaceful things. He liked staying close to home, helping his mother, and learning about God. One day, Esau came back from hunting. He was exhausted and very hungry. The smell of Jacob's red stew filled the air. Esau dropped his bow and said,
Quick, give me some of that red stew before I die.
Jacob looked up calmly and said,
I'll give you some, but only if you sell me your birthright.
Now, the birthright was very special. It meant that Esau, as the firstborn, would receive double the inheritance and become the family's spiritual leader. But Esau didn't value it. He said,
What good is a birthright if I die of hunger?
So he agreed to trade it for a single bowl of stew. Jacob served the stew, Esau ate it quickly, and just like that, Esau gave away something priceless for a meal. Do you think Esau made a wise choice? No. He cared more about filling his stomach than pleasing God. Years later, Isaac had grown old and blind. He called Esau and said,
My son, go hunting and prepare me a tasty meal. Then I will bless you before I die.
But Rebekah overheard. She remembered God's words and that Jacob would be the one chosen. So she told Jacob,
Quick, bring me 2 goats. I'll cook them the way your father likes. You'll take the food to him and receive the blessing instead of Esau.
Jacob hesitated.
But Esau is hairy and I'm smooth-skinned. Father will know and curse me.
Rebekah replied,
Don't worry, my son. I'll take the blame.
So Jacob dressed in Esau's clothes and covered his hands and neck with goat skins. Then he took the food to his father. Isaac said,
Who are you, my son?
Jacob answered,
I am Esau, your firstborn.
Isaac was suspicious.
The voice is Jacob's, but the hands are Esau's.
He ate the food and blessed Jacob, saying,
May God give you the dew of the heavens and the richness of the earth. May nations serve you and your brothers bow down to you.
Just as Jacob left, Esau came in with his own meal.
Father, I am Esau. Here's your food.
Isaac trembled.
Who was that who brought me food first? I blessed him, and he will surely be blessed.
Esau cried out bitterly.
Father, bless me too.
But it was too late. The blessing had already been given. Esau was furious. He shouted,
When father dies, I'll kill Jacob.
Rebekah heard this and quickly told Jacob,
Run, go to my brother Laban's house in Haran until Esau's anger cools down.
Jacob left that night, heart heavy but trusting in God's promise. On his journey, he stopped to rest and used a stone for a pillow. As he slept, he dreamed of a stairway reaching up to heaven, with angels going up and down on it. At the top stood God, who said,
I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham and Isaac. I will give this land to you and your offspring.
Jacob woke up amazed and said,
Surely God is in this place.
He named it Bethel, meaning house of God. Jacob continued his journey knowing that God would protect him, even when life seemed uncertain. He didn't yet know that his future would lead to 12 sons, the beginning of the 12 tribes of Israel, and that God's promises would continue through his family line. What have we learned? Sometimes in life, we may not understand why things happen. But like Jacob, if we trust God, He will guide us toward His promises, step by step. Are there other lessons you learned? Kindly drop them in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, follow, or subscribe, and turn on the post notification so you get to see new episodes as they get released. It was no ordinary man. It was an angel representing God Himself. Even when the angel touched Jacob's hip and dislocated it, Jacob refused to let go, saying,
I will not let you go until you bless me.
After many long years away from home, Jacob had built a new life, but not without challenges. You see, Jacob had fled from his brother Esau, who once wanted to harm him. But God had a plan for Jacob's future, and everything that happened next showed that God never forgets his promises. Jacob arrived in a distant land called Haran. He was tired and dusty from his journey, carrying little more than his walking staff and faith in God. Near a well, he saw several shepherds resting with their flocks. Then, out of the distance, came a young woman, Rachel, the daughter of Laban, Jacob's mother's brother. When Jacob saw her, his heart lifted. Rachel was kind, beautiful, and full of life. Without hesitation, Jacob rolled the heavy stone off the well's mouth all by himself, something that usually took several shepherds to do. The others watched in surprise. Then Jacob watered Rachel's sheep and told her who he was, a relative from far away. Rachel ran to tell her father, and soon Jacob was welcomed into Laban's home. Jacob worked for Laban and quickly proved himself honest and hardworking. But one day, Laban asked,
What should your wages be?
Jacob replied without hesitation,
I will serve you 7 years for Rachel, your younger daughter.
Laban agreed. And though 7 years is a long time, to Jacob it felt like only a few days, because of his love for Rachel. But when the wedding day came, something unexpected happened. That night after the feast, Laban secretly gave Jacob Leah, Rachel's older sister, instead. When morning came, Jacob was shocked and upset.
Why have you deceived me?
Laban shrugged and said,
In our country, the older daughter must marry first.
To marry Rachel too, Jacob had to agree to work another 7 years. He did, not out of obligation, but because his heart truly loved her. Maybe during those years, Jacob often looked at Rachel across the fields, reminding himself that true love is patient. And perhaps Leah, feeling unloved, quietly prayed for God to notice her pain. Which he did. As time passed, Jacob's family grew, and so did the tension between Leah and Rachel. Leah gave birth to sons, while Rachel, unable to have children at first, felt heartbroken. But eventually, with God's help, she too bore a son, Joseph. Jacob's flocks multiplied as well because God blessed everything he did. But Laban became jealous, and soon it was time for Jacob to go home. Jacob gathered his family, flocks, and servants, and secretly left Laban's land. But as he journeyed back toward Canaan, fear filled his heart. Esau was still there. Would his brother still be angry after all these years? To prepare, Jacob sent messengers with gifts, herds of animals on to show peace. That night, alone and anxious, Jacob crossed the stream of Jabbok. There, something incredible happened. A man appeared and began wrestling with him. They wrestled all night until dawn. Jacob realized this was no ordinary man. It was an angel representing God himself. Even when the angel touched Jacob's hip and dislocated it, Jacob refused to let go, saying,
I will not let you go until you bless me.
Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, for you have wrestled with God and with men and have prevailed.
In that moment, Jacob's fear turned into faith. He understood that all his life, from his struggle with Esau to his battles with Laban, God had been shaping him into a man of endurance and trust. The next morning, Jacob saw Esau approaching with 400 men. His heart pounded. He bowed to the ground 7 times as Esau drew near. But instead of anger, Esau ran to meet Jacob, threw his arms around him and kissed him. The two brothers wept together at their years of pain melting away in forgiveness. Esau said, I have enough, my brother. Keep what you have. But Jacob insisted that Esau accept his gifts, saying,
Seeing your face is like seeing the face of God, since you have accepted me.
What have we learned? Jacob's journey was long and filled with tests of faith, love, patience, endurance, and forgiveness. But through it all, God's promise stood firm. He would bless Jacob and his descendants. Are there other lessons you've learned? Kindly drop them in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, follow, or subscribe, and turn on the post notifications so you get to see new episodes as they get released. One that would change the history of their family forever. While the men of Shechem were at their weakest, Simeon and Levi took their swords and struck the city. It was a fierce act of revenge, one that went far beyond what Jacob believed was right. By now, Jacob was no longer the young traveler who first arrived at his uncle Laban's home. He had become a father of a very big family. Jacob had 12 sons, each one with his own personality, charm, and quirks. There was Reuben, the firstborn, Simeon and Levi, Judah, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun, and finally from Rachel, Jacob's beloved wife, there was Joseph. Soon another would come, Benjamin, but that part of the story comes later. And then there was Dinah, Jacob's only daughter. Dinah was full of life, curious, cheerful, and eager to meet people. She loved to walk through the camp, braid her hair with colorful threads, and talk to the women who lived in the land. One day, the curiosity in her heart led her to visit the nearby town of Shechem, where the local young women gathered. She wanted to meet them, laugh with them, and learn about their customs. But while there, something terrible happened. The prince of the land, Shechem, saw Dinah, and instead of treating her with respect, he acted selfishly and wrongly by defiling her. His actions harmed Dinah deeply, and the news spread back to Jacob's camp like a cold wind. Jacob's sons froze when they heard what had happened. Their eyes narrowed, their hands tightened. The usually playful camp became silent. Simeon and Levi, the brothers known for their fierce loyalty, felt the fire inside them rise. Their sister had been dishonored, and the prince who did it wanted to make things right in his own way. But the brothers felt justice had not been served. The men of the town agreed to make a peace agreement, but Simeon and Levi had other plans. They made a dangerous decision, a drastic action, one that would change the history of their family forever. While the men of Shechem were at their weakest, Simeon and Levi took their swords and struck the city. It was a fierce act of revenge, one that went far beyond what Jacob believed was right. When Jacob found out, he trembled with anger and fear. The camp became tense, shadows stretching long across the tents as he confronted his sons. "You have brought great trouble on us," Jacob's voice echoed through the camp. The brothers listened, their faces hardened by emotion. They believed they were defending their sister, but Jacob knew their actions would bring consequences. Amid all this chaos, God told Jacob to move the family to Bethel, a sacred place where Jacob had met God years before. There, Jacob built an altar and reminded his family to remove anything unclean, objects, habits, or influences from their lives. It was a moment of cleansing, of fresh beginnings, of returning to the path God laid out for them. And there in Bethel, something life-changing happened. God again confirmed his promise to Jacob, promising that his family would grow into a nation, that his children and their children would become a great people. But life carried both joy and sorrow. As the family continued its journey, Rachel went into hard labor as she gave birth to Benjamin. Though her son lived, Rachel did not survive. Jacob buried her along the way, placing a pillar to remember her, a moment that still echoes through history. Are there lessons you've learned from this? Please share them in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, follow, or subscribe. Also, turn on post notifications so you can see new episodes as they are released.
But he refused again and again. One day she grabbed his garment, and Joseph ran straight out of the house, leaving it behind. Angry and embarrassed, she accused Joseph of attacking her. And without a chance to defend himself, Joseph was thrown into prison. From the moment Joseph stepped into the sunlight each morning, everyone could see it. This young man carried something special. He was 17, bright-eyed, quick-thinking, and full of hope. And his father, Jacob, absolutely adored him. So much so that he gave Joseph a long, colorful robe, rich fabric flowing in the desert breeze, glowing like a rainbow against the sand. But while Jacob saw Joseph as a treasure, Joseph's brothers saw him as trouble. He told them about dreams where they bowed down to him, dreams where he stood tall and they circled around him. And the more he spoke, the more anger they held inside. One quiet day, Jacob sent Joseph to check on his brothers who were grazing the flocks far from home. As Joseph approached, the brothers saw the flash of his colorful robe from a distance, and in that moment, jealousy boiled over. There he is. Let's get rid of him. They didn't know what to do at first. Hurt him, scare him, send him back? But then an idea arrived, a cruel one. They grabbed Joseph, tore off his special robe, and threw him into a dry pit. Joseph called out from the darkness, confused and frightened, but the brothers sat down to eat as if nothing had happened. Then came a twist in the story. A caravan of Ishmaelite traders approached, camels loaded with spices and goods headed for Egypt. The brothers looked at each other and thought, why leave him in the pit when we can sell him? And just like that, Joseph's life changed forever. They sold him for 20 silver pieces, and the traders carried him away, his colorful robe stained with goat's blood to trick Jacob into thinking his son was gone forever. Jacob wept like a man whose heart had been shattered. Meanwhile, Joseph arrived in Egypt, a world of towering statues, golden jewelry, and bustling markets. Far from home, he became a slave in the house of Potiphar, a powerful Egyptian official. But Joseph didn't crumble. He worked hard, stayed honest, and trusted God. And God was with him. Soon, Potiphar noticed something different about this young Hebrew slave. Everything Joseph touched succeeded. Fields grew healthier, the household ran smoother, even the other servants began to follow his lead. Potiphar eventually put Joseph in charge of everything he owned, his entire estate. But peace didn't last long. Potiphar's wife began to notice Joseph too, his strength, his calmness, his clarity. She wanted Joseph to do something wrong, but he refused again and again. One day she grabbed his garment, and Joseph ran straight out of the house, leaving it behind. Angry and embarrassed, she accused Joseph of attacking her. And without a chance to defend himself, Joseph was thrown into prison. Joseph had gone from favorite son to slave to prisoner. Yet, even in prison, Joseph refused to break. He worked with integrity. He encouraged others, and God remained right beside him. The chief jailer noticed his honesty and leadership, just as Potiphar had. Soon, Joseph was put in charge of other prisoners. And that's when he met two important men, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, both former servants of Pharaoh. One night, they each had a disturbing dream.
What does it mean?
They wondered. Joseph said calmly,
Interpretations belong to God. Tell me your dreams.
The cupbearer shared his dream first, and Joseph said,
Your dream means you will soon return to your position as cupbearer.
The baker shared his dream next, and Joseph explained gently,
You will not survive.
And that is exactly what happened. Before the cupbearer left the prison, Joseph said,
Please remember me. Mention me to Pharaoh.
But the man left and forgot Joseph completely. Still, Joseph waited. Still, Joseph trusted. He remained inside the dim prison, unaware that the next chapter of his life would lift him higher than he ever imagined. God was shaping his story, piece by piece, setback by setback, preparing him for something extraordinary. Joseph had been in prison for a long time, but God had not forgotten him. One night, Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, had two very strange dreams. In the first dream, Pharaoh saw 7 healthy cows coming up from the river. Then 7 thin, sick cows came after them and ate the healthy ones. In the second dream, Pharaoh saw 7 full, good heads of grain, and then 7 thin, dried heads that swallowed the good ones. Pharaoh was troubled. He called all the wise men of Egypt, but no one could explain what the dreams meant. Suddenly, Pharaoh's chief cupbearer remembered Joseph, the young Hebrew who could explain dreams with God's help. Pharaoh sent for Joseph at once. Joseph was quickly cleaned up, shaved, and dressed in new clothes before standing in front of the king. Pharaoh said,
"I hear you can explain dreams."
Joseph humbly replied,
I cannot do it by myself, but God will give the answer.
Joseph explained that both dreams meant the same thing. God was warning Egypt about the future. There would be 7 years of great food and plenty, followed by 7 years of terrible hunger. Joseph then gave wise advice. Pharaoh should choose a wise man to store food during the good years so Egypt would survive the famine. Pharaoh was amazed. He said,
"Can we find anyone like this man who has God's Spirit?"
That very day, Pharaoh removed Joseph from prison and made him second in command over all Egypt. Pharaoh gave Joseph fine clothes, a gold necklace, and his royal ring. Joseph was only 30 years old, yet he now ruled the land under Pharaoh. The people bowed to him, and Joseph traveled through Egypt, preparing for the years ahead. Just as God said, the good years came, and Joseph stored huge amounts of grain. Then the famine arrived, not only in Egypt, but in many lands. People from everywhere came to Egypt to buy food. One day, Joseph's own brothers arrived, bowing before him, just like in the dreams Joseph had as a boy. They did not recognize him, but Joseph recognized them at once. Joseph did not reveal himself immediately. Instead, he tested his brothers to see if their hearts had changed. He spoke firmly, accused them of being spies, and asked about their family. He kept one brother in Egypt and demanded they bring their youngest brother Benjamin to prove they were telling the truth. When the brothers returned with Benjamin, Joseph saw that they truly cared for one another now. Judah even offered to become a slave in Benjamin's place. Joseph could no longer hold back his tears. He sent everyone out of the room and cried loudly. Then he said,
I am Joseph, your brother.
The brothers were terrified, but Joseph spoke kindly. He said,
Do not be afraid. You did not really send me here. God did. He sent me ahead of you to save lives.
Joseph forgave them completely and embraced them with love. Joseph told his brothers to bring their father Jacob and the entire family to Egypt. Pharaoh gladly agreed and provided the best land for them. When Jacob heard that Joseph was alive, his heart was filled with joy. He traveled to Egypt, and Joseph ran to meet his father and wept in his arms. So Jacob and all his family came to live in Egypt, in the land of Goshen, where they were safe and cared for. What began as suffering ended in blessing. God used Joseph's pain to save many lives and keep his promises. And through it all, Joseph never stopped trusting God, whether in a pit, a prison, or a palace.
God asked him powerful questions.
Where were you when I created the earth? Can you command the morning? Do you understand how the stars are placed?
Job realized how small he was, and long ago, in a land called Uz, there lived a man named Job. Job loved God very much, and he always tried to do what was right. He was honest, kind, and gentle. He helped poor people, cared for widows, and protected children who had no parents. God blessed Job with many good things. He had a big family, many animals, and great wealth. But Job did not love God because he was rich. He loved God because it was the right thing to do. But something was happening that Job could not see. In heaven, Satan the devil was watching Job. God said to Satan,
Have you noticed my servant Job? There is no one like him on the earth. He listens to me and always does what is right.
Of course Job worships you. You protect him and bless him. Take everything away, and he will stop loving you.
You may test Job, but you must not kill him.
God was confident that Job's love was real. Soon, terrible disasters began to happen, one after another. First, enemies called the Sabeans stole Job's cattle and donkeys, killing the servants who cared for them. Then, fire fell from the sky and burned up all his sheep. Another group, the Chaldeans, took his camels. And then came the worst news of all. All of Job's children died when the house they were in collapsed. Job was broken-hearted. He tore his clothes and fell to the ground in deep sadness. But instead of turning away from God, Job bowed down and said,
God gave, and God has taken away. Let the name of God be praised.
Even then, Job did not sin with his lips. Satan was not satisfied. He caused painful sores to cover Job's body from head to toe. Job sat in ashes, scraping his skin in pain. He did not understand why this was happening. His own wife told him to curse God and die. Still, he did not stop worshiping God. Later, 3 friends came to see Job. At first, they sat silently with him, but then they began to accuse him. They said,
"You must have done something wrong. God would not punish an innocent man."
I have done nothing wicked.
But in his pain and confusion, Job began to wonder if God was being unfair to him. A young man named Elihu had been listening quietly. Finally, he spoke up and said,
"All of you are wrong. God is far greater than humans can understand. He never does anything wicked. He sees everything and always acts with justice."
Then something amazing happened. God spoke to Job. God asked him powerful questions.
Where were you when I created the earth? Can you command the morning? Do you understand how the stars are placed?
Job realized how small he was and how great God is. With humility, Job said,
I spoke without understanding. Now I truly know you. Nothing is impossible for you. I am sorry.
When the test was over, God healed Job completely. He gave Job twice as much as he had before, more animals, more blessings, and a long, peaceful life filled with joy. God was pleased with Job because he stayed faithful even when life was very hard. And so, Job's story teaches us something important. Even when we don't understand why bad things happen, God sees everything. And if we keep trusting Him, He will never forget our faith. As you think about Job's life, you might begin to wonder, if something bad happened to me, would I keep loving God too?